50 years of flying has taught me this hard lesson. Complacency is the real enemy. After 50 years of flying fighters, test aircraft, airliners, aerobatics, I've learned something that still makes me uncomfortable. And as I said, this is probably my greatest weakness. The greatest danger in aviation isn't what most people think. It's not thunderstorms, it's not engine failures, it's not even emergencies. It's something much quieter. And if you fly long enough, it will get you. It's complacency. And I didn't fully understand how dangerous it was until one day I got caught. I was doing a cross-country flight with my buddy, IP, Tim. I was a brand new T-37 pilot. I'm just getting started kind of flying. I've got, maybe 300 hours total time. And, I'm checked out. I'm a new instructor and things are going well. I'm through all the checkout phases and I'm kind of getting kind of comfortable. And I've got my buddy IP, Tim. Tim was my mentor. Actually, it's kind of funny. Tim and I ended up at United Airlines together. Tim is a great guy, a real character. And those of you who know Tim know exactly what I'm saying. Unfortunately, Tim has passed away now, but he was a great guy. But back to the story. We're going on a cross-country, 2 IPs together. I know you're saying that itself is worth a notum and probably one of the most dangerous things you can do in aviation, 2 IPs flying together. Well, okay, we're going cross-country, and we go out to Aldis Air Force Base from Enid, Oklahoma, Enid by the sea. And we're in the pattern there, and they call out a C5 to us. Now, I'm digressing here slightly. They call out a C5 in the pattern. It's about 14 miles away, and at the time, this was the world's largest aircraft, and we looked at each other, and we couldn't see it. And it's kind of embarrassing not to be able to see the world's largest aircraft. But anyway, we go in, and we land at Aldis. And I'll tell you, I think we could have taxied under the C5, and we're parking it on the ramp next to it. So we're getting out. We're kind of looking at it. It's kind of cool. We get our fuel, and now we're going to head on back to Enid. Well, here is kind of when the problem occurred. We climbed out. We leveled off, and I looked down, and I saw that little telltale flag of my ejection seat pin. It's not in my pocket like it should be. It's still in the seat, and okay, I looked at that, I pulled the pin out, and I showed it to Tim. And he starts laughing. And I'm thinking, well, if I forgot to pull mine out, I bet he forgot to pull his out. And I said, Tim, check your seat. He looks down there and goes, oh my gosh, I forgot my pin also. So we both pulled it up. Well, the lesson on complacency is, it was complacency and it's distraction. I'm getting comfortable. Tim's comfortable. And, we missed the checklist is what we kind of did. I don't know if we went through it too quick. We glanced over it because in ATC, you went through each item on the checklist, which got me in trouble when I went out at Edwards because they're a little quicker. Okay. A little complacency out there, but that's a different subject for a different time. But anyway, we missed the pins, both of us. Okay. That's kind of when complacency reared its ugly head, and I said, I'm getting comfortable here, but I've got to be just a little more careful. I'm just glad that we didn't have a problem. We tried to eject on takeoff. That wouldn't have been good. Okay. If we'd have done our checklist more carefully, even done a little pre-cockpit check of looking around, we would have caught it. This was definitely a wake-up call for me. But let's be clear. The airplane doesn't care how many hours you have. It doesn't care that you've flown fighters. It doesn't care you've flown jets across the ocean. It doesn't care about your logbook. All it cares about is whether you're paying attention right now. And the day you stop actively thinking in the cockpit, even just a little, is the day the margin starts shrinking. Complacency, easy for me to say, doesn't show up on your first flight. Because you're scared, you're nervous, you're tense. You're not going to be complacent on your first flight unless there's something really strange about you. But it shows up after things have gone on for a while, maybe years. And that's when it's most dangerous. Today I want to talk about how it creeps in, why experience actually makes it worse, and the moment I realized I wasn't immune. And that was the moment that I just related to you. What complacency really is. Complacency isn't laziness. It's comfort without vigilance. It's when experience replaces attention. It's when repetition dulls awareness. You stop consciously evaluating. You stop actively cross-checking. You rely on muscle memory instead of active thought. Aviation demands deliberate thinking, not just habit. When you begin assuming instead of verifying, you begin eroding safety margins. In aviation, margins are everything. Altitude margins, fuel margins, performance margins, weather margins. Complacency quietly shrinks all of them. When does it creep in? Like I said, it never shows up on your first flight in a new airplane because you're on your toes. It shows up on your 500th. In military flying, I saw it on low-level routes. First few times, everybody studies the map carefully. Threats are briefed thoroughly. We know where every tower is. Terrain is respected. But after a while, someone says, we've flown this route before. That's when discipline softens. In airline operations, repetition is constant. How many times have I flown to Rome? Let me tell you. It's the same routes, same procedures, same call-out. Flows become automatic. Checklists become background noise. Briefings get shortened, and that's when altitude deviations happen. And that's when unstable approaches aren't corrected early enough. In general aviation, it's subtler. The airplane has always run fine. The weather looks good. The airport's familiar. So you don't stick the fuel tanks or check them. You don't mentally rehearse the engine failure. Blue skies are the perfect environment for complacency. And let me talk about how, you've got a checklist. But, maybe you're not going through it as well as you should. And I'll tell you a little story about a mental checklist. T-37, as an instructor, we had the students. And when you put the gear down, you go handle, horn, lights, pressure. That's your little checklist. It's kind of like a GUMPS checklist, but it's handle. The gear handle is down. Horn, the horn is stop. Lights, you've got 3 green lights. Lights, the unsafe light has gone out. Pressure, the hydraulic pressure is returned. So I'm flying a pattern with a student. He slaps the gear handle down. He doesn't place it down. He slaps it down, and he goes, handle, horn, lights, pressure. And I go, okay, are you sure about that? And he goes, yeah. And he's looking at, coming around the final turn. He's looking at the runway. And I said, I don't know. I think we have a problem here. He says, what do you mean? And he says, well, your airspeed's a little high, isn't it? And he goes, yeah, I don't understand that. Well, if you don't have the gear down, you don't have as much drag. And I said, well, let's have a little cause and effect here. And he goes, my power's too high. And I go, no, that's not it. I don't think that's it. And we're still going around the final turn. We're about to be sent around by the mobile unit down there if we don't get this fixed real quick. We did end up going around. But I said, okay, what's that beeping sound? And he looks over and he sees the gear handle halfway down, the unsafe lights on, no 3 green. And I said, later I said, well, you did have the handle. It was halfway down. You did have the horn. It was beeping instead of not beeping. You did have lights. Well, you had lack of 3 green, but you did have the unsafe light. And the pressure was good. The pressure had come back up because it's never really used. Okay, that's when my student learned a little lesson on complacency. Now let's talk about another issue. You do not thoroughly review the NOTAMs. Sometimes in the airlines, we would have sheets of NOTAM that were like 5, 6, 7, 8 feet long at O'Hare. And we got our chief pilot chided one of our crews for missing a NOTAM. And they stuck it up on the wall and it hung down with all the NOTAMs on our ALPA bulletin board. And there's a little note that says, Bob, which NOTAM was that we missed? Bob was the chief pilot at the time. Okay. Yeah, kind of to emphasize. That's why there's been kind of a push to simplify the NOTAM system. Yeah, we'll see when that comes out. But the NOTAMs are a big potential gotcha that's got me, especially when the list is lengthy, like I just mentioned. True story, okay? This is a true story. I was flying from Ottawa, Iowa, visiting my wife's mother, and en route, I decided to make a stop in Iowa City, my former home airport. I was going to take my niece out to dinner just for fun. I just said, hey, I'm just going to stop at Iowa City. It's almost directly en route. It's a little bit off. It's my home airport. Man, I don't know. I've landed there thousands of times. Since I was en route, I didn't bother checking the Iowa City NOTAMs. And guess what? I'm talking to Cedar Rapids Approach, and they said, well, did you know that both of the two runways, there used to be a third, but they tore that out. There's only two runways now. And they said, did you know that both runways are torn up for resurfacing and that the airport was closed? And of course, this is when the Cedar Rapids Approach, as ATC always says, they go, state intentions. And I go, well, I think we'll just continue on to 3 Charlie Kilo. Fortunately, this wasn't planned as a fuel stop. I didn't need fuel. I had plenty of fuel on the airplane. So I just let my niece know that, hey, never mind. we're not going to do that. Flew over the airport and saw, yeah, that was not going to be suitable for landing. So that was a decent way to kind of look stupid on that one. But unfortunately, at least I wasn't flying with a airliner full of passengers to be embarrassed. So we continued on to our home airport. It all worked out. Now, one thing that gets you in trouble is you don't mentally rehearse engine failure. The blue skies that you fly in are the perfect environment for complacency. Now, let me tell you why experience increases risk. Low-time pilots are careful. They're slightly nervous. They double-check. They brief thoroughly. That nervousness, easy for me to say, protects them. But as hours accumulate, confidence grows. Confidence is necessary. Overconfidence is danger. You begin normalizing small deviations. So, that approach was a little fast. The fuel margin was tighter than planned. That descent rate was a bit high, but you survived it. So it feels acceptable. But survival does not equal safety. Repeated survival of small deviation creates a new normal. And that's called normalization of deviation. And it's one of the most dangerous psychological traps in aviation. Normalization of deviation is what killed the Challenger crew. But you got away with it, so it was a safe act. Was it? I like to use the example of Russian roulette. You spin the chamber. You pull the trigger. No bang. Hey, you survived. But did you perform a safe act? Now let me tell you how complacency hides. Complacency hides in RUS checklists, abbreviated briefings, incomplete threat discussions, skipping alternate reviews, casual communications, assuming weather trends will hold, believing nothing ever happens here. It hides in familiarity. It hides in routine. It hides in long stretches without incident. The human brain is wired to relax after repeated success. But aviation punishes relaxed thinking. Every takeoff deserves full attention. Every landing deserves deliberate execution. Every approach deserves disciplined review. All right, so how do you fight it? Well, you fight complacency with ritual. You respect the checklist every time. You brief even when it feels repetitive, and you brief every item. You verbalize threats out loud. You're not afraid to do that. It's not a weakness. You mentally rehearse failures. You assume something unexpected could happen. Not because you're afraid, but because you respect the machine, because you respect physics. After 50 years, I still review systems. I still think through what-ifs. I still visualize engine failures on takeoff. Every takeoff. I still treat every flight as if it matters, because it does. Discipline is what gives you longevity, not experience alone. After 50 years of flying, here's the hard lesson. The greatest threat isn't out there. It's inside the cockpit, inside you, inside the mind. The moment you believe you're beyond mistakes, you are the closest to making one. Stay humble, stay disciplined, stay mentally engaged every flight. That's how you make it to 50 years. And that's how you avoid letting complacency win. I'll see you in the next episode. Aviation Adventures with Captain Ron. Thanks for watching.